You might have heard a lot of times that the RPG Assassin's Creed games like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Odyssey, and Origins aren't as good as the traditional type of Assassin's Creed games. Now obviously, it's very easy to notice the difference between these two types of games. Even a 5-year-old will be able to explain you the difference. Sure, they shouldn't be allowed to play it by the way. So, are the RPG Assassin's Creed games really the root cause of the issue that the current games face, or is it more nuanced than that? Well, we're gonna see that in this video. But before that, I would appreciate a like on this video and feel free to subscribe to this channel if you want more Assassin's Creed content. So I'm gonna be putting some arguments against the RPG Assassin's Creed games. And even me personally, I'm not the fan of the RPG Assassin's Creed games, and I'm gonna tell you the reason why. Just sit tight. Now the first reason that people argue is that RPG games just do not fit the whole Assassin's Creed vibe that was used to be there back in the traditional Assassin's Creed games. Another reason is that RPG games in general focus a lot more on the monetization aspect, and everyone can agree that RPG games in general make a lot of money because of these microtransaction practices. These games are designed in a way that creates this system which lures people into buying different stuff. I can actually give you a pretty good example in this regards. In 2017-18, PUBG and Fortnite came into the gaming scene, and the nature of those games promote this sort of environment that attracts players into buying stuff in-game. And in Fortnite's case specifically, it has been a pretty big source of revenue for them. Now obviously, as you might think, Fortnite is a free-to-play battle royale game in which cosmetics play zero role in your competitiveness. It all depends on you and what your skills are, right? It does not give you any extra advantage. Now what happened was that Ubisoft and other companies as well started doing the same, despite the fact that the story games are completely different than online games. So if Ubisoft made a game of their own that is an online game by its nature, they can promote these things, but adding these things in story games is completely different in my opinion. First, you are already paying for the base game, and additionally there's options for even more microtransactions. Now the problem I see is that these microtransactions literally change the game for you, which is very different to what happens in a game like Fortnite. I remember even in a game like Assassin's Creed Mirage, which is not an RPG game, there's this perk you get with the sword that makes the dead enemy disappear, which removes the trail part. Now the other enemy NPC cannot see the body, and it's just easier for you, right? They're not gonna search. And this is not the only example. Even stuff like XP boost makes your game much more easier. Now you might think, well, what it's got to do with the case of RPG Assassin's Creed games inherently being bad? Well, the problem is that the games are made by keeping in mind the microtransaction part way more than any other aspect of the game, specifically the creative aspect. You can clearly see that the substance of an Assassin's Creed game is inversely proportionate to the microtransactions in the Assassin's Creed game. When microtransactions go up, quality goes down. In the traditional Assassin's Creed games, there were very few, if not any, microtransactions in the games, and those games were of a much better quality than the recent Assassin's Creed games, specifically the RPG ones. Though I would put Mirage in the same category because a lot of things are derived from Assassin's Creed Valhalla in that game. Now, the traditional games felt like movies instead of games. You are experiencing a story that connects with you directly, and you actually feel like you are inside this sort of experience, right? And it just feels so much more immersive. But now in the recent games, it's something different. The games just don't give the same amount of impact after you finish them. With the traditional games, you would feel satisfied even though the games were less than 20 hours long with limited stuff, and the map was even much smaller, right? I don't think that the immersion in the recent games is the same as the traditional Assassin's Creed games. It's just the truth, guys. The recent games just don't have the qualities which will make you feel like the whole narrative experience is really good compared to what you saw in the traditional RPG games. Like, there's no comparison. If you are a legit game reviewer, not like the IGN reviewing stuff, because IGN is like kind of biased, it's they don't review stuff properly. But if you are like a legit game reviewer, you can easily see the difference between the traditional Assassin's Creed games and the recent one. Traditional Assassin's Creed games just had a better narrative experience in general, guys. It's just how it is, it's not even subjective in my opinion. It can be subjective in terms of gameplay and stuff like that, but in terms of the narrative experience, the Assassin's Creed games easily win against the recent ones. And from this point, we branch to another point, that is the RPG games are meant to be bigger, whether it be the size of the map or the length of the base game. And you might be thinking, that's actually a good thing, right? Yeah, but no. There's a lot more nuance. Generally speaking, two games of similar quality and and one that is smaller in size and one that is bigger in size, the bigger one would be better, obviously, right? You're just getting more to enjoy. But that's not actually the case most of the times. In order to achieve that much vastness in a limited amount of time, the games have to cut some corners, like decreasing the overall quality of the game. You have to remember, Assassin's Creed games are not like GTA games, right? Assassin's Creed games are a lot more frequent. We get that in like 2 years, 3 years max. Last time it happened, 3 years was the max difference we've ever had between two Assassin's Creed games, not more than that. So if you're releasing the games so close to each other in time, then you have to, kind of cut corners. That's just how it's gonna be. So there's a limit to create these games. There's only so much you can do. And that's not even the problem. The problem is that Ubisoft increases the vastness of these games due to the fact that the longer the players play their game, the higher the chances of them buying microtransactions. Obviously, if you are spending more time playing a game, you are gonna be more keen to buy stuff, Also, to make the game easier and shorter, players can indulge heavily into microtransactions. It's like pay to win, but the win is actually making the game a hell lot more easier. Now, coming back to our question, are RPG Assassin's Creed games inherently bad? The answer is just a straight no. RPG games are good. Speaking of them being good, it can be good if the game has a solid story with great animations, mocap dialogues and movement that include parkour, environmental depth, good soundtracks, and more. Then I don't think there would be any problem, to be honest. It's just how it was before, right? All these things were there in the traditional Assassin's Creed games. It is not even something that never existed. It already existed, and they just need to implement these things again so that we can also have these similar narrative experience in the future of Assassin's Creed. But they don't do that, and obviously, as I mentioned before, there's a reason. But again, the nature of these RPG Assassin's Creed games is that in order to make the game bigger, they cut corners on all the things that I mentioned before. That ultimately favors the microtransaction part more than the creative direction of the game. At the end, it comes down to making money in simple terms. They are making RPG games for making money because that's the nature of these games. RPG Assassin's Creed games will just make more than the traditional types of Assassin's Creed games. That's just the reality. That's not the problem of the RPG games. Now, the problem does not lie with the RPG games, but the problem lies behind the intent of making RPG games. It's the cash grab intent of these giant companies that makes us feel that RPG games are bad, but actually they are not inherently bad. It's just all about the intent. And why not? All these major companies see games like Fortnite, Grand Theft Auto Online, and other online games that have been successful, so they try to create their own money-making machine. But not everyone can do it. That's just the hard truth. And in one of my previous video, I talked about this thing that Ubisoft was making like a dozen of online games and they just canceled those games. I don't know why they did it, but because of this fantasy of theirs, they fell into this stupid route, right? So in conclusion, RPG games aren't necessarily bad. They can be good if the focus is put on all the aspects that I talked about. Rather, I would say it's the fight between business and creativity. It's the fight between the executives and the developers. The developers are not responsible for this shift, but the executives, the top guys, are responsible for all of this. So you know whom to blame. But anyways, that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, by the way. Feel free to like this video and consider subscribing if you want to see similar type of Assassin's Creed content, and you can check my previous videos as well. Feel free to comment down below if you have any thoughts on this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.